Today we are learning about variables and the basic types of data in Python. Think of this as learning the alphabet before you write sentences. Once you understand how to store and label information, everything else in coding gets easier. Let's define our words before we use them. A variable is just a name that points to some value. A data type describes what that value actually is, like a number or a word. Assignment is the act of giving a variable its value, and dynamic typing means Python figures out the type for you.
To create a variable in Python, you just write a name, an equals sign, and a value. Here age gets the number 25, and name gets the text Maya. Notice we never had to say ahead of time what type these would be, Python figures it out.
To fill a box, we use the equals sign, which we call assignment. The variable name goes on the left, and the value goes on the right. So age equals 25 means put the number 25 into the box named age. In short, the equals sign always means store this on the right into the name on the left. An integer is just a whole number, like how many apples are in a basket. There is no decimal point involved, just a clean count. You might use an integer for someone's age or the number of items in a cart. In short, integers are for counting whole things. A float is a number that has a decimal point, like $4.99. We use floats whenever we need more precision than a whole number gives us, like weight or temperature. Notice the name float comes from how the decimal point can float to different positions. In short, floats are numbers with fractional parts. A boolean is like a light switch, it only has two positions, on or off. In Python those positions are written as true and false, always with a capital letter. We use booleans whenever a program needs to make a yes or no decision. Sentences wrapped in quote marks. A boolean is like a light switch, it is either on or off, nothing in between. In Python those two states are written as true and false, always with a capital letter. We use booleans to answer yes or no questions inside our programs, like whether a user is logged in. In short, booleans hold only true or false. You might wonder how Python knows whether a box holds a number or text. This is called dynamic typing, and it means Python looks at the value you give it and figures out the type on its own. Notice in the example, X starts as a number and then becomes text, and Python just goes along with it. In short, Python decides the type based on whatever value you just assigned. A very common beginner mistake is trying to glue a number directly onto a piece of text using plus. Python does not know how to combine those two different types, so it stops with an error. The fix is to convert the number into a string first, using the str function. If you forget the quotes around a word, Python assumes you are referring to some other variable with that name, not plain text. Since no variable called red exists, the program crashes with a name error. In short, text always needs quotes around it. Some other languages use static typing, where you must declare a variable's type up front and it can never change. Python's dynamic typing is quicker to write and more flexible, which is great for beginners and fast experiments. The trade-off is that type mistakes might not show up until you actually run the program. In short, dynamic typing trades early error checking for speed and simplicity. Let's recap what we learned today. Variables act as labeled boxes, and assignment with the equals sign is how we fill them. We covered four basic data types: whole number integers, decimal floats, text strings, and true or false booleans. And remember, Python uses dynamic typing, so it figures out the type from whatever value you give it. Today we learned that variables are labeled boxes created with an equals sign. We covered the four basic data types: whole numbers, decimals, text, and true or false values. We also saw that Python uses dynamic typing, so a variable's type can change, and we looked at the common mistakes to avoid along the way.